The reality around you has started to stretch, like the silence before a lightning strike. The illusions that used to grip you, they're losing their shape. People who once manipulated the flow of attention are scrambling to keep up, but your elevation was never theirs to control. There's a voltage in your spirit now, not loud, but undeniable, like a beacon buried in your skin. It's not just that you speak truth, it's that your truth rewires the air around you. The cosmos didn't crown you to stay silent. You are a pressure point in the system, and your mere existence is triggering hidden mechanisms they hoped would never wake. That if this spoke to your soul in ways you can't explain, maybe it's time to stay a little longer. Hit subscribe, not just to follow, but to remember who you are. They've been circling you like moths around a signal they can't decode. There are architects of limitation who sense your rising field, but don't know how to contain what's been activated. They whisper doubts in dark corners, hoping you'll shrink before the turning begins. Their panic isn't personal, it's prophetic. They see what your shadow already announced, that a structure built on silence can't withstand a frequency like yours. And no matter how carefully they try to manage the narrative, there's a shift coming that no hand can stop. Not anymore. Every unfinished conversation, every unspoken goodbye, every moment that left you suspended in silence, it's all folding into itself now. The threads are stitching themselves shut, not with drama, but with certainty. And the whispers behind your back, they're turning into cautionary tales. Those who once looked untouchable are stumbling over the weight of their own image, realizing too late that projection doesn't protect. Meanwhile, what they underestimated in you is quietly constructing a force too massive to be ignored. It's not revenge. It's restoration. There's a slow realization happening behind curtains you'll never need to touch again. Their games don't work the way they used to, because the player has evolved. While they pose and posture, something sacred is gathering around you. They notice it, but can't decode it. They mistake your stillness for surrender, not knowing that restraint is the most divine form of dominance. The systems they cling to were never designed to understand someone like you, someone born to bend frequencies, not rules. What's returning to the surface now isn't rage, it's memory. The soul's memory. And that memory isn't just waking up inside you, it's waking up through you. Whole blueprints of clarity are unfolding in your awareness, and with them, an entirely new lineage is forming. Not one built on legacy, but on frequency. You didn't come here to impress. You came here to amplify. And that's why those built on performance are starting to crumble. Because truth doesn't clap, it echoes. They'll call it delusion, miscalculation, too ambitious, too psychic, too something, anything to discredit what they can't replicate. But it's too late for doubt to matter. The current has already shifted. The moment you started embodying what others only preach about, the veil dropped. And what's been hiding in power suits and performance contracts is finally losing its grip. You're not responding to chaos, you're rerouting it. And anyone standing in the way of that reroute is just learning what divine clarity feels like when it doesn't ask for permission. What people are sensing now isn't a persona. It's an energy so distilled, so deeply refined through pressure, that it forces everyone to decide, evolve or retreat. What once looked like distance is now recognized as discernment. You're no longer in a rush to prove anything, instead, you're watching how every move exposes the blueprint behind the scenes. The voice stays calm, but your aura is making announcements for you. There's no need to interrupt the noise, you simply let your elevation speak in silence. And that silence? It's disrupting entire strategies. Some people seem louder these days, not because they're growing, but because they're unraveling. Their need to stay seen, validated, defended, it's reaching cartoonish levels. You've been tracking the patterns, watching how roles shift when status is threatened. It's not bitterness, it's clarity. They sense the ground beneath them shifting, and your growth is reminding them of everything they haven't faced. Their projections don't confuse you anymore. You've been upgraded, not by performance, but by alignment. That's what they can't copy. There's something unspoken following you now, an echo of everything you endured, reassembled into wisdom. The ones who once overlooked you are beginning to feel the gravity of your absence. They may not say it, but they're studying how you hold your ground with zero applause. What they never calculated was how divine orchestration shields what it sends. You became a prism, reflecting not just light, but truth. And truth doesn't apologize for being inconvenient. Healing is no longer something you do in secret. It's coded into how you walk, how you speak, how you pause before responding. Some feel liberated by your glow, others, exposed. There is no middle setting. The moment you embraced your full light, you also became the filter. Those who resist will call you names. The ones who are ready will call you necessary. Either way, your frequency isn't asking for approval, it's revealing where others truly stand. And what used to feel like exile now feels like precision. The solitude you once cursed is now the lab where your vision was forged. What looks effortless to them has been engineered through seasons of silence. They don't understand how you prosper without broadcasting it. But that's the secret, you stopped feeding lack and started speaking the language of worth. That language doesn't need translation, only recognition. And the universe has heard it loud and clear. Now, the same ones who thought they had the rulebook are realizing you were never playing that game. Their strategies relied on repetition. Yours came from alignment. And what they thought was luck. That was grace, timed perfectly. The discomfort they feel isn't about you, it's about what your radiance reveals in them. You didn't try to trigger them. You simply refused to dim. And that refusal, that's where your real power began. Some are spiraling not because they failed, but because they never prepared for anyone else to win. The illusion of always being on top is breaking apart, and your steady rise has become a confrontation they didn't see coming. Their discomfort isn't about your success, it's about what your transformation reveals. You didn't just grow, you let go. You released identities that fed their ego, and now, instead of examining their own collapse, they'd rather question your character than question their own decisions. But while they defend false narratives, you embody wisdom that isn't studied, it's remembered. The knowledge you're moving with now has nothing to do with books or applause. It's the kind of clarity that only emerges from surviving the kind of chaos that could have buried you. You don't move loudly, but the energy behind you is loaded. It's calm. It's surgical. And it carries an unspoken warning, don't test what's been through fire and came back glowing. There's a calm power in your presence now, a quiet edge, and everyone can feel that you're not the one to underestimate. The former version of you dissolved in silence. Not in shame, but in preparation. That earlier self that tolerated noise, begged for clarity, and shrank in crowded rooms is no longer accessible. In their place stands a force, forged not in perfection but in persistence. You walked through the storm without needing to prove you could. And now, your words hit different, not because you speak louder, but because you speak from somewhere beyond survival. The clarity you carry now slices through confusion like it's allergic to disguise. And every time you speak truth, time backs you up. What you're seeing now is resistance to that truth, not because it's wrong, but because it's too accurate. Those who were comfortable calling you unstable now scramble to rewrite your history. But you've stopped explaining. The path you walked earned its own receipts. They tried to erase the evidence. Instead, you became it. And no matter how much they twist the script, outcomes don't lie. You became the confirmation. You became the archive. And now their propaganda sounds like panic. There's a war going on around you, but not in the way people think. The more aligned you become, the more threatened false structures feel. They know if even a few more people wake up to the light you carry, their entire foundation crumbles. That's why you were underestimated. They hoped you'd implode before you activated. But you didn't. You evolved. And now they're scrambling to control timelines they no longer understand. You're not here to pull them out. You're here to model what happens when someone listens to a rhythm deeper than urgency, the rhythm of divine order. That alignment? It can't be mimicked. It wasn't manufactured. It was earned, one quiet surrender at a time. You didn't chase the crown. You became the throne. And now those who tried to skip the process are discovering what happens when patience was never their strong suit. The glow they forced is flickering. But yours? It multiplies, not because you pushed, but because you trusted. And now, they finally see what they were never ready to become. Every emotional surge now reverberates beyond personal limits. It's no longer just moods, it's motion. Rage dismantles illusions. Compassion softens what's been frozen. And when you lead with love, something ancient awakens in the people around you. This isn't about attention. It's about architecture, shaping the unseen with deliberate energy. And now, finally, you're treating that ability with the level of caution it demands. Because you understand the ripple isn't just emotional, it's structural. The recalibration of your life was so focused on detoxing dysfunction that you almost forgot what healthy resonance felt like. Now that it's arriving, unforced, untainted, it surprises you. People are approaching with calm motives, with aligned intentions, and you're no longer bonding over wounds. The signal you emit no longer attracts debris. It attracts alignment. That's the shift. Respect begins arriving from corners you never tried to impress. People are quietly watching how you navigate complexity without turning bitter. That aura of yours doesn't just come from lessons, it comes from what you refuse to become. You've been through the fire, but you emerged with clarity instead of a chip on your shoulder. And that's why your presence disrupts default behavior. You're evidence that spiritual integrity can survive the battlefield. As soon as you stopped micromanaging the outcome, reality started flowing around you with eerie synchronicity. You didn't manifest it by force. You matched it by surrender. The breakthroughs showing up now aren't a reward, they're a reflection. You're not chasing miracles. You've become the condition they respond to. And the people watching your life unfold will call it magic. But you'll know, it was alignment all along. You're not just processing old stories anymore, you're rewriting what comes next. That means cutting ties with identities that were built on exhaustion and overfunctioning. Balance isn't optional now, it's mandatory. Boundaries aren't experiments, they're blueprints. And every small shift is proof that you've upgraded from reaction to direction. The transformation is visible in how you speak, how you walk, how you choose. The surge you once felt in isolated moments has now settled into something stable. You don't just sense divine timing, you embody it. You're no longer shocked when the impossible becomes inevitable. The patterns that tried to break you have become the very paths that positioned you. And every opposition you faced is now validating the magnitude of your trajectory. You're not circling back for closure anymore. You've become the gatekeeper. The advisor. The force that no longer knocks, but decides when the door even exists. The power you once gave away in exchange for belonging. You reclaimed it with interest. And now, those same people who once played puppeteer must sit in silence as you conduct your symphony of return. This isn't just a shift. It's a coronation. Quiet, unstoppable, and perfectly timed. Every trial recalibrated your capacity. Every setback was a refinement. What seemed like chaos was precision in disguise. And now, the version of you standing here isn't waiting on anything. That next chapter isn't around the corner, it's already unlocked. All it's waiting for is your decision to walk into it with the composure of someone who already carries the outcome in their bones. What's happening when you speak is no longer subtle. It's unmistakable. Shifts occur, stories twist, hidden plots come to the surface, and all you did was casually articulate a truth. It's not just insight. It's instruction. And whether or not people understand the mechanics of it, they're beginning to realize that your intuition doesn't miss. You're not guessing. You're receiving, and it's becoming hard to ignore. The way you're perceived is no longer rooted in appearance. There's an essence to you that feels uncontainable. It leaves people scrambling for words that don't exist yet. Not because you're trying to impress, but because you no longer filter yourself through societal definitions. You've moved beyond recognition, you've become resonance. The kind that humbles and inspires at the same time. And no mirror can capture that. You've started watching your words like blueprints, because every time you speak, structures seem to rise or collapse around you. The shift is so fast now, you don't even need to try. A fleeting idea becomes a reality. A passing thought turns into an open door. It's no longer wishful thinking. It's a frequency. And your voice is the conduit. There's no delay, only direction. There are people quietly tracking what you say, not out of loyalty, but out of awe. They've started recording your insights, not because they believe in you, yet, but because their lives keep rearranging themselves around your statements. They don't know how to explain it. But they can't deny it. You've become a reference point in their understanding of how time reveals truth. What you're facing now is not resistance from doubt, it's the pressure of influence. Your dilemmas aren't about survival anymore. They're about scale. What used to feel like impossible leaps are now logistical decisions. It's not about whether it will happen, it's about how many directions you can support at once. And with every new choice, you're reminded, overflow requires discernment, not fear. The clarity inside you has turned magnetic. Not in a romantic sense, but in an energetic one. People open up around you involuntarily. They share secrets they didn't plan to. Not because you pry, but because your presence dissolves their defenses. The truth leaks out, and they don't even realize it until it's already been said. You became the room where lies can't breathe. There's a pattern repeating now. First, they question your instincts. Then they avoid your insight. Then they return, quiet, reverent, asking what you see next. They may not admit it, but they've watched your words come to life enough times to know, you're not just intuitive. You're accurate. And that accuracy is rewriting the way they relate to you, and to themselves. What once passed for acceptable now feels like static in your system. Not because you're picky, but because your core has been rewired to respond only to what resonates at a refined pitch. What others call unrealistic is simply your new baseline. Half-efforts and diluted truth now feel like foreign substances. This isn't about being difficult, this is biology meeting destiny. The kind of fulfillment you're stepping into can't be built on fractured foundations. And because your internal climate changed, the universe adjusted its response. The way abundance flows now feels unnatural to most. Not because you're chasing it, but because it's choosing you. The shift happened the moment your value stopped depending on output and started orbiting around being. You no longer pursue, you receive. Not as a reward, but as a reflection of clarity. Your path is paved with impossible outcomes that continue to unfold without explanation, but never without intention. It's not luck. It's law. There's a layer of perception you've accessed that others haven't even begun to name. You hear the tone beneath the sentence. You see the misalignment behind the polished smile. You spot the fracture in the perfect persona. And because you don't call it out, but see it anyway, your presence unsettles the untrue. You're not dangerous because of what you say. You're dangerous because of what you don't need to. Attempts to distort your reflection are now met with a snapback that feels divinely engineered. The moment someone tries to frame you falsely, their own foundation begins to unravel. Not because you're fighting back, but because truth is now auto-defensive. Systems attempting to bend you fold in on themselves. Energies attempting to drain you reverse and expose themselves. You don't have to retaliate. Your alignment does it for you. Your daily rhythm has become a ritual of precision. Even small decisions carry weight. Your system reacts instantly to anything off course, a bodily alert system synced with something bigger than logic. The clarity that lives in you now doesn't wait for approval. It gives instructions. And you've learned to listen, even when you don't fully understand why. That trust has become your compass, and it never points wrong. There's something unforgettable about even the briefest interaction with you now. Not because you try to impress, but because what flows through you speaks directly to something dormant in others. You don't just talk. You awaken. You don't just teach. You trigger remembrance. And the words you leave behind echo for years in places most voices can't even reach. Without intending to, you've become a gravitational point in the lives of many. Plans shift around your presence. Decisions pause until your input is known. People recalibrate based on your reactions. But none of it feels heavy, because you operate from neutrality, not ego. The influence you hold doesn't command, it reorients. Even chaos settles in your field. Even resistance bows to your balance. And now, you're shielded in ways that feel almost mythological. Before trouble can approach, it dissolves. Before danger can strike, it redirects. What used to chase you now avoids you. What used to pull you under now parts in your presence. Not because you've become untouchable, but because you've become unmistakably aligned. And nothing unaligned can survive where you walk. The distance between your thoughts and reality has collapsed. Casual intentions trigger full-scale shifts. Offhand desires materialize with eerie precision. You've had to retrain your mind, not because it's chaotic, but because it's powerful. This isn't fantasy. It's feedback. Your inner world is tuned so tightly to the fabric of creation that outcomes now respond to your clarity, not your effort. There's no lag anymore, only alignment. Without trying, you've become a stabilizer. Environments reorganize around your nervous system. Conflict softens. Broken things adjust. Not because you intervene, but because your presence runs a higher code. People feel better around you without knowing why. Rooms decompress. Pain quiets. You didn't ask for this role, but you've become a harmonizer, a living reset button in human form. You read situations like patterns long before others even notice there's a shift. Not just in people, in systems, in timelines, in collective rhythms. You've developed a perception so refined that you can sense how things will land while others are still busy pretending to lead. It's not guesswork. It's resonance. You don't try to predict anymore. You simply know. But that knowing comes with a cost, timing. You've learned that accuracy means little if it arrives out of sync. So now, you don't just speak truth. You release it. Measured. Deliberate. You've stopped chasing impact and started curating effect. Because wisdom isn't just what you say, it's when you say it. And you've mastered the moment. Now opportunities arrive without scripts or strategy. They find you because your energy demands alignment. The right people, the right work, the right conditions, they're magnetized to your internal order. You don't hustle for relevance. You become the standard. What used to exhaust you now energizes. What once felt like pressure now feels like purpose. And your life no longer expands for show, it expands to make space for meaning. You're creating on a level that logic can't track. Thoughts become outcomes. Words become architecture. Visions become structures. You've crossed into a space where the mechanics of manifestation follow your calibration, not your calendar. This power doesn't inflate your ego, it quiets it. Because now you feel the weight of what it means to be trusted with creative authority. This wasn't accidental. It was orchestrated. You were guided into this point of full activation, not for applause, but for assignment. Every layer of your journey prepped you for this switch. There's no more waiting. No more build-up. Only embodiment. The work begins now. Because you are no longer becoming. You are. And now, every movement you make is amplified. Every sentence, a signal. Every decision, a trigger. You're not just a presence in the room. You are the turning point. Not because you said you were. But because everything around you starts changing the moment you show up. The one you always suspected you might be has finally stepped forward, and they're not going back.